The Plain of Jars. Picture a windswept plateau in north-central Laos, where the earth is scarred by bomb craters and the hills feel unnaturally quiet. Scattered across this rugged landscape is something that looks almost unreal. Thousands of enormous stone jars. Not symbolic, not ceremonial replicas. Real jars, carved from solid rock. Some taller than a grown adult, some weighing more than 10 tons. They sit across the plateaus and foothills like abandoned giants' cups, watching over a land whose builders left behind no cities, no written language, and no clear trace of who they were. Only the jars remain. Silent, immovable, unexplained. More than 90 separate sites have been identified so far. At some locations, you'll find just a handful of jars. At others, hundreds cluster together in uneven groups, each one carved from sandstone, granite, limestone, or conglomerate, each one demanding an enormous investment of time, skill, and coordination. And then there's the question no one can ignore. The quarries where these stones were cut often lie kilometers away, sometimes 10 kilometers or more, across steep hills, dense forests, uneven ground. This was likely a Bronze or early Iron Age society. No evidence of wheels, no advanced machinery, and yet they somehow transported multi-ton stone vessels across hostile terrain. That alone suggests a society with extraordinary organization, a centralized power, leaders capable of mobilizing labor on a massive scale, possibly over generations. But to what end? Local legends offer a dramatic answer. Stories passed down for centuries speak of giants who once ruled this land. Their king, Kunchung, supposedly ordered the jars carved to store vast amounts of rice wine after a great military victory. A feast for heroes. A celebration on an impossible scale. It's a captivating tale. But archaeology tells a darker story. Excavations beginning in the 1930s, led by French archaeologist Madeleine Colony, and followed by modern international teams, uncovered something unsettling. Human bone fragments, burial beads, ashes, remains found inside the jars and buried in the soil around them. This led to a chilling theory, that the jars were not containers for wine, but for the dead. According to the multi-stage burial hypothesis, bodies were placed inside these stone vessels shortly after death. There, they were left to decompose. Once only bones remained, those bones were removed and buried nearby in secondary graves. This practice, known as excarnation, has appeared in other ancient cultures around the world. Some jars even appear to have once been sealed with stone lids, now mostly lost to time. Nearby, archaeologists have found underground burial chambers and cremated remains, suggesting multiple funerary traditions existed side by side. And yet, the mystery refuses to resolve. Why are the jars so wildly different in size and shape? Why do some sites contain hundreds, while others only a few? And what about the strange stone discs found nearby, carved with concentric circles and stylized human figures? They don't fit neatly as lids. Are they grave markers? Ritual objects? Something symbolic we no longer understand? Then there is the tragedy layered on top of the ancient one. During the Vietnam War, Laos became the most heavily bombed country per capita in history. This region was relentlessly targeted. Explosives tore through the same land where the jars had stood undisturbed for millennia. Even today, unexploded bombs litter the soil, making excavations slow, dangerous, and incomplete. How many clues were destroyed before anyone could study them? How much knowledge vanished beneath fire and metal, erased by a war the jar builders could never have imagined? The Plain of Jars is more than an archaeological puzzle. It's a place where ancient questions collide with modern scars. And if a civilization could move mountains just to honor its dead, what other impossible places might still be hiding truths we're not ready to face? The Hoya Forest. Just west of the Romanian city of Cluj-Napoca, on the edge of Transylvania, there is a forest that feels fundamentally wrong the moment you step inside it. Locals don't describe it as haunted. They describe it as active. A place where something is constantly happening, just beyond the edge of explanation. This is Hoya, often called the Bermuda Triangle of Transylvania. For more than 50 years, This forest has drawn paranormal researchers, scientists, UFO investigators, and skeptics from around the world, all of them searching for the same thing: an answer to why this place feels different, why the air feels heavier, why the silence feels watched. Its modern reputation began in the late 1960s. In 1968, a biologist named Alexandru Sift was studying the forest when he photographed a strange, disc-shaped object hovering above the treetops. Later that same year, a military technician named Emil Barnia captured images of a similar object, despite official pressure to stay silent. The photographs spread quickly. They were analyzed, debated, never fully dismissed. And suddenly, Hoya Baciu was no longer just a local curiosity. It became an international mystery. But the sky is only part of the story. Look closely at the forest itself, and it becomes unsettling on its own. Trees twist into impossible shapes. Trunks bend at sharp angles. Some spiral like corkscrews. Others seem to grow in knots, tangled with themselves. And the strangest part is that this behavior isn't consistent. One cluster of trees grows warped and distorted, while trees just meters away rise straight and healthy. Scientists tested the soil again and again. No toxins, no radiation, no chemical imbalance, nothing that should cause such deformation. Then there is the clearing. At the heart of Hoya Baciu lies a near-perfect circle where nothing grows. No grass, no shrubs, no trees. Soil samples from the clearing show no abnormalities. By every biological measure, plant life should thrive here. But it never has. The ground remains bare, year after year. Local folklore claims this clearing is not empty at all, that it belongs to whatever inhabits the forest. Some say it's a portal, a doorway to somewhere else. People who enter Hoya Baciu often report the same physical reactions: an overwhelming sense of anxiety, sudden nausea, crushing headaches, the feeling of being watched, followed, observed by something just out of sight. Even more disturbing are the marks. Visitors have emerged with unexplained scratches, rashes, and burn-like wounds. Injuries they don't remember receiving. Time behaves strangely here as well. Hikers enter expecting a short walk, only to exit hours later with no memory of what happened in between. In older accounts, some claim days were lost entirely. And then there are the voices. Disembodied sounds echo between the trees. Whispers captured on audio recordings. Shadowy figures moving at the edge of vision. Floating lights. Glowing green eyes in the darkness. Thick mists that appear without warning. Electronic devices fail without explanation. Batteries drain. GPS systems go silent. Skeptics offer explanations. Perhaps the twisted trees result from unusual weather patterns when they were young. Perhaps infrasound, low-frequency vibrations beneath conscious hearing, cause anxiety and hallucinations. Perhaps expectation shapes perception. People enter believing the forest is haunted, and their minds fill in the blanks. Each theory explains one piece. None explain all of them, because the reports keep coming, decade after decade, from locals, scientists, tourists, and trained observers who had nothing to gain by lying. Hoya Baciu remains a place where explanations feel incomplete, where science brushes up against something it can't fully measure. And if a forest can distort perception, time, and even the body itself, what happens when reality bends somewhere far older and far more isolated? The Yonauni Monument. In 1986, beneath the calm blue waters off Japan's southernmost islands, a routine dive turned into a discovery that still divides experts to this day. Just off the coast of Yonauni, a local diver searching for hammerhead sharks descended into the depths and found stone steps where no steps should exist. 25 meters below the surface, an enormous rock formation rises from the seafloor. Not jagged, not chaotic, but sharp, layered, geometric. Vast terraces stretch outward. Flat platforms stack like stairs. Clean right angles cut through solid stone. At first glance, it doesn't look like nature at all. It looks intentional, like a city drowned by time. This is what became known as the Yonauni Monument. The structure is massive, roughly 100 meters long and 60 meters wide, rising more than 20 meters from the seabed. Its features feel disturbingly deliberate. A broad, flat platform nicknamed the Turtle. Long, looping terraces that wrap around the formation. Two towering stone slabs that resemble pillars. And at its center, a monumental stepped platform, often described as a pyramid, ascending in precise, 1-meter-high levels to a flat summit. The symmetry is striking. The angles feel engineered. And that raises a question with enormous implications. Is this the result of natural forces acting over millions of years? Or is it the submerged remnant of a lost civilization from a forgotten age? One of the strongest supporters of the artificial origin theory is marine geologist Masaaki Kimura. After decades of repeated dives and detailed surveys, Kimura argues that Yonaguni shows unmistakable signs of design. He points to what appear to be carved staircases, straight-edged channels that resemble drainage systems, and markings that look like symbols etched into the stone. He also notes that sections of the structure seem separated from the surrounding rock, suggesting quarrying rather than erosion. According to this interpretation, the monument was built when sea levels were far lower during the last ice age, more than 12,000 years ago. As glaciers melted and oceans rose, the structure was swallowed by the sea, frozen in place like a time capsule. If that scenario is true, it would overturn everything we think we know about early civilization in the Pacific. Monumental architecture appearing thousands of years earlier than expected. Complex planning. Stoneworking on a scale thought impossible for that era. But the counterargument is just as compelling. Geologists skeptical of the man-made theory point out that Yonaguni is composed of sandstone, a rock known for fracturing along straight, flat plains. Under the relentless force of ocean currents, waves, and time, sandstone can break into shapes that appear eerily architectural. To them, the steps are natural terraces. The sharp angles are fractures. The symmetry is coincidence amplified by perception, a classic case of pattern seeking. The mind seeing design where none exists. They argue the structure remains physically connected to the island's bedrock, which undermines the idea of quarrying. And the supposed tool marks? Natural scratches, erosion lines, and cracks mistaken for intention. There's one absence that keeps the debate unresolved. No pottery, no tools, no carved artifacts, no remains. Nothing that clearly proves habitation or construction. Only stone. So Yonaguni waits, silent beneath shifting currents. A colossal shape suspended between explanations. To some, it is a sunken legacy from a forgotten world. To others, it is a reminder of how easily nature can imitate creation. And if the ocean can preserve something this convincing without answering what it truly is, what other places might still be hiding on land, where reality itself refuses to settle on a single truth? The Racetrack Playa. High in the mountains of Death Valley, far from roads and far from witnesses, there is a dry lake bed that behaves like it's alive. The ground is cracked and sunbaked. The air is still. And yet, across this barren surface, rocks move. Not tumble, not roll downhill. They slide. Some weigh more than 300 kilograms. And behind each one, a long, deliberate track is carved into the mud, stretching for hundreds of feet, as if the stone calmly decided to go for a walk. These are the sailing stones of Racetrack Playa. For decades, the tracks were the only proof. Perfect lines etched into the surface. Some straight, some gently curved, others making sharp, sudden turns, as if the rock changed direction mid-journey. At times, multiple stones travel side by side, their paths running in near-perfect parallel. In other cases, stones begin together, then split apart, each choosing a different route. Two questions haunted scientists for nearly a century. What force could possibly move stones this heavy? And how could that force leave such precise tracks without disturbing the surrounding mud? Early explanations focused on wind. Death Valley is known for powerful gusts, and rain could soften the playa into a slick surface. But the math didn't work. Winds strong enough to move the largest rocks would need to exceed hurricane speeds. Winds like that would tear up the entire lake bed, not leave behind delicate, surgical lines. Other ideas emerged. Magnetic forces. seismic vibrations. Even the suggestion of something paranormal nudging the stones under cover of night. The isolation of the playa only deepened its eerie reputation. The rocks became silent actors in a mystery written directly into the desert floor. The breakthrough finally came in the winter of 2013. A team from the Scripps Institution of Oceanography decided to stop guessing and start watching. They installed a weather station, placed GPS trackers inside replica stones, and waited. For years, nothing happened. Then the conditions aligned. A rare rainfall flooded the playa just enough to create a shallow lake. Nighttime temperatures dropped below freezing, forming a thin, transparent sheet of ice around the stones. By morning, sunlight began to break the ice into massive floating panels. And then came the wind. Not a gale, not a storm, just a gentle, steady breeze. Around 10 to 15 kilometers per hour. The wind pushed the ice, not the rocks. The ice sheets acted like sails, slowly drifting across the water. As they moved, they nudged the stones embedded within them. The rocks, heavy and grounded, scraped against the soft mud below, carving the tracks as they went. When ice panels cracked or shifted, the stones turned. When multiple rocks were locked into the same sheet, they moved together. Everything suddenly made sense. In December 2013 and January 2014, cameras and GPS units captured the phenomenon in real time. Stones sliding at a quiet, steady pace. Some traveling up to 15 feet per minute. No mystery force. No hidden hand. Just an extraordinarily rare dance between water, ice, wind, and time. The sailing stones weren't supernatural after all. But in a place where rocks can move without sound, without witnesses, and without warning, it raises a deeper question. How many other landscapes still appear impossible simply because we haven't caught them in the act? The Great Serpent Mound. In the quiet hills of southern Ohio, far from cities and highways, the land itself forms a message. From the ground, it looks like gentle rises of earth. But from above, the truth is unmistakable. A colossal serpent, carved into the landscape, stretching across a high plateau above a winding river. This is the Great Serpent Mound, the largest surviving effigy mound on Earth. Unlike most ancient mounds, this one holds no bodies, no tombs, no graves. It is not a monument to the dead. It is something else entirely. A deliberate image shaped into the land itself. A statement made in soil and geometry. From head to tail, the serpent measures more than 400 meters long. Its body undulates in 7 sweeping coils, flowing with unnatural precision. At the western end, the tail tightens into a complex triple spiral. Every curve is smooth. Every proportion feels intentional, as if the entire form was planned before the first basket of earth was ever lifted. The head is where the mystery deepens. The serpent's jaws are open, poised around a large hollow oval. Some see it as an egg, others as the sun. Some interpret it as another creature entirely. Just beyond the mouth lies a triangular mound, sharply defined, placed with purpose but never fully explained. Dating the structure has proven surprisingly difficult. For decades, it was attributed to the Adena culture, active in the region more than 2,000 years ago. But radiocarbon tests complicated that story. Charcoal samples from within the mound point to different eras. Some date to around 300 BCE, others to nearly 1100 CE. That gap is enormous. One possibility is that the serpent was built by one culture and later restored or altered by another. Another is that its true creators were not who we once believed. Without tools, ornaments, or artifacts left behind, the identity of the original builders remains uncertain. Then there is the question of why it was built at all. One of the most compelling explanations lies in the sky. The serpent's head aligns precisely with the setting sun on the summer solstice. Its tail corresponds with the winter solstice sunrise. Other features appear to mark the equinoxes. Together, these alignments suggest the mound functioned as a massive astronomical instrument, tracking the rhythms of the year. Some researchers go even further. They propose that the serpent's winding body mirrors the shape of the constellation Draco, with the pole star once positioned near the serpent's head. In this view, the mound becomes a map of the heavens, anchored to the earth. The symbolism of the serpent only adds to the intrigue. Across countless ancient traditions, serpents represent transformation, renewal, and cosmic power. A serpent consuming an egg, or the sun, could symbolize creation, destruction, or the eternal cycle between the two. An eclipse frozen into the land. What's most striking is what's missing. There are no burials, no signs of daily life. This was not a village. It was not a cemetery. It was a sacred place, a site meant for ceremony, for gathering, for aligning the human world with forces far beyond it. The Great Serpent Mound remains a question written in earth, a message without words, a reminder that long before modern science, the land itself was used to speak to the sky. And if an ancient people could encode their understanding of the cosmos into the ground beneath their feet, what other messages might still be waiting, hidden in plain sight, across the surface of the earth? The door to hell. In the heart of the Karakum Desert, where the land stretches flat and unforgiving in every direction, there is a wound in the earth that never cools. A vast crater, 70 meters wide and 30 meters deep, burns day and night. Flames roar from its depths. Heat ripples the air. The ground itself seems alive. Officially, it's called the Darvaza gas crater, but almost no one uses that name. Here, it is simply known as the door to hell. This is not an ancient myth or a forgotten ritual site. It's a modern mystery, one born from ambition, miscalculation, and a decision made under pressure that no one ever expected to last this long. The story begins in 1971, when Turkmenistan was still part of the Soviet Union. Soviet geologists were surveying the Karakum Desert, searching for oil and natural gas. Their instruments pointed to what appeared to be a promising deposit. Drilling began, but beneath the surface was not a stable field of oil. It was a massive underground cavern filled with natural gas. The ground collapsed without warning. Drilling rigs, equipment, and infrastructure were swallowed as the earth gave way, forming a deep sinkhole. Remarkably, no one was killed, but a new danger immediately emerged. Methane gas poured out of the crater in enormous quantities, invisible, flammable, and potentially lethal. Faced with the risk of toxic gas spreading across the desert, the scientists made a choice. They set it on fire. The plan was simple. Ignite the gas. Let it burn for a few days, maybe a few weeks. Then move on. They had dramatically underestimated what lay beneath them. The fire never went out. Decade after decade, the crater continued to burn, fed by vast underground gas reserves. For years, it remained a little-known anomaly, hidden in the emptiness of the desert, spoken of quietly during the Soviet era. After Turkmenistan gained independence, word spread. What began as an industrial accident transformed into one of the strangest sights on Earth. At night, the crater becomes unreal. The flames glow bright orange against the black desert sky, visible from kilometers away. Up close, the heat is overwhelming. The sound is constant, a deep, roaring breath rising from the earth itself. Standing at the edge feels less like visiting a landmark and more like staring into something alive. And then came another surprise. Scientists who descended into the crater wearing heat-resistant gear discovered life. Not just surviving, but thriving. Extremophile bacteria living in the superheated, methane-rich environment at the bottom. Organisms that challenge our understanding of where life can exist. Their discovery raised unsettling questions. If life can adapt here, in fire and gas, what might survive in similarly hostile conditions on other worlds? The future of the door to hell remains uncertain. Turkmenistan's government has repeatedly announced plans to extinguish the fire, both to stop the waste of valuable gas and to reduce environmental damage. But sealing a burning underground gas chamber is an enormous technical challenge. Expensive, dangerous, unpredictable. So the flames continue. What began as a mistake has become a monument, a reminder of how thin the line is between control and catastrophe, a place where human intention collided with geological power and lost. And if a single decision could create a fire that burns for half a century, what other forces might still be smoldering beneath the surface? waiting to be awakened? The Khatt Shebib. Across the windswept plains of southern Jordan, a faint line cuts through the desert. From the ground, it's easy to miss. A low scatter of stones. A crumbling ribbon barely rising above the earth. But from the sky, its true scale is revealed. It stretches for nearly 150 kilometers. Longer than Hadrian's Wall. Longer than the Berlin Wall ever was. And yet, almost no one has heard of it. This is Khatt Shebib, sometimes translated as Shebib's Wall, sometimes as Shebib's Rope, a monumental structure hiding in plain sight. Early travelers and pilots noticed it in the early 20th century, but it wasn't until satellite imagery and aerial surveys that its full complexity came into focus. What appeared to be a single wall is actually a sprawling network. Branching sections, parallel lines, spurs that break away and rejoin the main path. In some places, the wall is little more than a knee-high pile of unworked stones. In others, it becomes more deliberate. Larger boulders carefully placed. Sections that follow the contours of the land as if someone understood this landscape intimately. Scattered along its length are the remains of small stone towers, circular structures 2 to 4 meters wide, positioned at irregular intervals. The first question is obvious. What was it for? As a defensive structure, it makes little sense. The wall is too low, too thin. There are no ditches, no ramparts, no gates. In many places, it avoids high ground that would have offered a tactical advantage. Any determined group could have crossed it without effort. That leaves another possibility. Perhaps this was never meant to stop armies. Perhaps it was meant to mark something. A boundary, a line drawn across the desert to define territory. Not a barrier of force, but a statement of control. In an open landscape, even a low wall can carry meaning. It can regulate movement, guide herds, signal where one domain ends and another begins. A political border for a kingdom that has vanished without a name. But the most compelling theory looks even deeper into daily survival. In an arid environment, land management is everything. Overgrazing can destroy pasture for generations. Khatt Shebib may have functioned as a massive system for controlling livestock. An ancient fence on an almost unimaginable scale, separating grazing zones, protecting fragile land, guiding the seasonal movement of sheep and goats. This would explain its winding path, its disregard for military logic, its quiet persistence across the landscape. And yet, the greatest mystery remains unanswered. How old is it? No pottery has been found. No tools, no inscriptions, nothing that clearly dates its construction. Based on erosion and nearby structures, archaeologists tentatively place it somewhere between the late Iron Age and the Nabatean period, roughly 1000 BCE to a few centuries CE. But this is educated guesswork. It could be far older, a remnant of a forgotten Bronze Age society. The name itself offers no clues. Khatt Shebib is likely a much later Bedouin label, tied to legend rather than history. What remains is a structure of immense ambition, built stone by stone across vast distances, by people who left no cities, no monuments, no written record, only a line, a question stretched across the desert, still asking the same thing it has asked for thousands of years. Why? The Catacombs of Paris. Beneath the bustling streets of Paris lies another city, a silent, shadowed world carved from limestone, stretching for hundreds of kilometers beneath the feet of millions. This is the Paris Catacombs, a subterranean empire holding the remains of over 6 million souls. Most visitors only see a tiny, sanitized slice. A few ornate walls of bones, skulls stacked with eerie precision, poetic inscriptions hinting at mortality. But these are just the tip of a sprawling, unmapped labyrinth. 200 kilometers of tunnel, caverns, and passageways, much of it forbidden, unstable, and alive with mystery. The origins of the catacombs were practical, not mystical. By the late 18th century, Paris's cemeteries were overflowing. The stench and decay were contaminating water supplies, threatening the city. In 1786, officials decided to transfer the remains to abandoned limestone quarries that had existed since Roman times. Night after night, Wagons carried bones from graveyards to their new underground resting place. Priests chanted as noble and peasant alike were indiscriminately mixed into vast piles. Initially, the bones were simply dumped. Chaos ruled the subterranean halls. It wasn't until the early 19th century that the catacombs became an artistic display. Under the guidance of quarry director Louis-Étienne Héricart de Thury, skulls and femurs were arranged into walls, patterns, and crosses. Inscriptions were added, reflecting on life, death, and the fleeting nature of existence. The famous sign at the entrance reads, "Arrête, c'est ici l'empire de la mort." Stop. This is the empire of death. But the true mystery begins where public access ends. The vast majority of tunnels remain off-limits. Dangerous, unstable, hidden under Paris like veins of shadow. Yet a secretive subculture, the cataphiles, has claimed this underworld as their own. For generations, these urban explorers have slipped through manholes, sewers, and forgotten cellars. They map the tunnels, document history, and even inhabit this hidden city. Deep inside, they've built cinemas, bars, libraries, and galleries. Secret parties, concerts, and clandestine meetings occur far from prying eyes. They navigate by hand-drawn maps more detailed than any official record and follow strict rules. Leave no trace, respect the dead, never reveal entrances. In 2004, police conducting a training exercise stumbled upon one of these secret cinemas. Fully equipped, fully operational. By the next day, it had vanished, leaving only a note. Do not try to find us. The catacombs are more than a burial site. They are a living, breathing underworld. A physical manifestation of the city's subconscious, a repository of its repressed history. To enter is to step outside time, law, and the ordinary world, into a place governed by its own rules. And the question lingers, what else lies in the unmapped darkness? What secret communities, hidden treasures, or forgotten histories wait to be discovered in this empire of the dead? The catacombs remind us that even beneath one of the world's most studied cities, mysteries endure, waiting silently in the dark. The Devil's Sea. Far south of Tokyo, in the vast, restless Pacific, lies a stretch of ocean as feared in Japanese lore as the Bermuda Triangle is in the west. Known locally as Monoumi, the Devil's Sea, or the Dragon's Triangle, has haunted sailors for centuries, its waters whispered about in stories of vanished ships, lost planes, and compasses spinning wildly with no explanation. The Dragon's Triangle centers around Miyake Island, stretching between Japan's coast and the Bonin Islands. Paranormal researcher Ivan T. Sanderson included it among 12 vortices around the world, locations he claimed were hubs of strange electromagnetic activity, responsible for inexplicable disappearances. For generations, Japanese fishermen have spoken of phantom vessels drifting silently through the fog, of entire crews disappearing into the waves, leaving no wreckage, no oil slicks, no survivors. Ancient Chinese legends tell of enormous dragons living beneath the waves, rising to snatch unwary ships and drag them into their underwater palaces. The Devil's Sea gained global attention after World War II. Between 1952 and 1954, 5 Japanese military vessels vanished, taking over 700 lives. The most infamous was the research vessel Ko Maru No. 5, sent to investigate previous disappearances in September 1952. The ship and its 31 crew vanished without a distress call. Only a small amount of wreckage was ever found. The government soon declared the area a danger zone for shipping. Paranormal theories abound. Some suggest alien abductions. Others claim interdimensional portals or weapons from lost civilizations. Compasses that spin without cause, electronics that fail. These are cited as signs of something beyond the ordinary. Yet natural explanations are compelling. The Devil's Sea sits atop the Pacific Ring of Fire, a hotbed of undersea volcanoes and seismic activity. Sudden eruptions could sink ships or create tsunamis, leaving little evidence behind. Beneath the waves lie massive methane hydrate deposits. If destabilized, they could release enormous gas bubbles, lowering water density and causing ships to sink in seconds. The weather itself is a killer. The Dragon's Triangle is a breeding ground for typhoons and rogue waves. Colossal, sudden walls of water that can reach over 30 meters high. One wave could easily capsize a ship before a distress signal is sent. Skeptics point out that, statistically, the disappearances are not unusual given the heavy shipping traffic through the region. They argue the mystery is largely sensational, a collection of unrelated accidents woven into legend. And yet, for those who navigate these waters, the Devil's Sea is no story. It is a place of dread, a stretch of ocean where ancient dragons and the raw, violent power of nature seem to swim side by side, where the boundary between myth and reality blurs beneath the waves. What lies beneath these restless waters? Science can explain some of it, but not all, and the sea keeps its deepest secrets tightly locked, waiting for the next ship to pass over. Great Zimbabwe, deep in southern Africa, on a plateau between the Zambezi and Limpopo rivers, rise the ruins of a city that once ruled a vast and prosperous kingdom. This is Great Zimbabwe, the largest ancient stone complex south of the Sahara, a monument of unparalleled skill and ambition. The site stretches across nearly 1,800 acres and is divided into three main areas. The hill complex crowns a high granite outcrop, thought to be the city's spiritual and royal heart. Below, the valley complex housed artisans and the elite. But the most awe-inspiring structure is the Great Enclosure, a massive elliptical wall over 250 meters around and 11 meters high, built from over 1 million expertly cut granite blocks, fitted without mortar. Along its top runs an elegant chevron pattern, a subtle testament to precision and artistry. Inside stands a conical tower, 18 feet tall, whose purpose remains unknown, a silent enigma preserved in stone. When European explorers first arrived in the late 19th century, they refused to believe that a city of such sophistication could have been built by native Africans. Racist assumptions gave rise to fantastical theories. Phoenicians, Egyptians, Arabs, even King Solomon himself were credited as its builders. These claims ignored the evidence and fueled a myth that denied the ingenuity of the African people. Early archaeologists and treasure hunters, operating under this bias, destroyed invaluable layers of the site. Pottery, tools, and cultural artifacts were discarded in the desperate search for foreign proof of the city's origin, leaving scars that still complicate research today. But the truth endured in the stones themselves. Decades of careful archaeology have revealed what colonial narratives refused to acknowledge. Great Zimbabwe was built by the ancestors of the Shona people between the 11th and 15th centuries CE. It was the capital of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe, a wealthy trading hub connecting Africa to Persia, China, and the Arab world. Chinese porcelain, Persian glass, Arab coins, all speak to a city at the center of a global network. The iconic soapstone bird carvings, now symbols of modern Zimbabwe, are uniquely local creations. Every block, every artifact, every piece of pottery points to an indigenous African origin. The real mystery was not the city itself. It was the prejudice that tried to erase its history. Great Zimbabwe is more than ruins. It is a testament to human ingenuity, to a civilization that thrived for centuries, and to the enduring power of truth. And it asks us a question far closer to home. Why are some histories celebrated while others are so eagerly denied? In the end, the stones speak for themselves, and they tell a story of wealth, skill, and resilience that no myth, no prejudice, no colonial narrative can ever erase. If these mysteries left you questioning the world around you, make sure you join us on Strange Wise, where the unexplained comes alive. Hit subscribe and ring the bell to dive into more hidden histories, strange phenomena, and places that defy reality. Share this video with fellow curious minds, and comment below. Which of these enigmas do you think holds the deepest secret? The journey into the unknown is just beginning. Don't miss a single discovery.